Tashidelek, in today's episode of In Conversation with Tibettv, we are going to cover an area that remains largely unexplored and unfamiliar to most people. It is the historical relationship between Tibet and Japan, particularly during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Let us learn more about this relation from the Liaison of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for Japan and East Asia, Dr. Tsewang Gyalpo Arya. Welcome to our program, Kongola.
Yes.
First of all, Kongola, could you introduce the ancient ties between Tibet and Japan?
Regarding Tibet and Japan relations, the earliest historical record shows that the first contact that Tibet and Japan had was during His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama in 1908. So that was when His Holiness for 13th Dalai Lama, after the British expedition, young husband expedition came to Tibet. So His Holiness Dalai Lama escaped to Mongolia. And from there, he went to China. In China in 1908, so when His Holiness was visiting Wu Taishin temple at there, the Japanese monk, Venerable Otani Sonya, the younger brother of Otani Hoji of Nishihonganjin Temple in Kyoto, they visited His Holiness, and His Holiness and Otani, they had a discussion about the Buddhism and about the student exchange program also. And His Holiness gave them some Buddhist texts also. This was the starting point in which Japan showed a great interest in Tibetan Buddhism and having maintaining a good relation with Tibet. And then when His Holiness visited Beijing, Peking, at that there, the Japanese ambassador to China, Mr. Hayashi Gonsuke, he visited His Holiness, and then with him was Japanese military attaché Masanori Fukushima. So they also discussed about Tibetan situations, and they also explained about the Japanese military systems and their training also. That was how His Holiness 13th Dalai Lama established a relation with the Japanese monks and the Japanese governments.
What are the background and motives of Japanese national who entered Tibet during that period of time when Tibet was an independent nation?
Yeah. So after that, what happened was that many Japanese were also very interested in Tibet, because many Japanese monks felt that the Buddhism that came to Japan was from China, and then it was mainly in the Chinese texts. So they felt something is missing in the text. So they want that the real teaching should be, they should achieve the real teaching. For that, they had to go to Tibet. So around, there are about 10 Japanese who traveled to Tibet in the early 20th century. So they were like a monk like Kawaguchi, and then Togen Tada, and there are other monks also. Togen Tada and Kawaguchi, they studied Buddhism very studiously at the Sera monasteries. And then they took a lot of Tibetan literatures, scriptures, and all these to the Japan. Then there are other people like Aoku Bunki, Narita Yasutera, Enga Teramoto. They played little secular roles, trying to teach the Tibetans about the world and giving information to the Japanese military and to the governments. And then there is, like, as I told you before, the Japanese military expert, Yajima Yasujiro. It is in the book. Yajima Yasujiro, he was a military veteran. So it is said that His Holiness 13th Dalai Lama was very fond of him, because he trained a section of Tibetan military, so in a Japanese styles. But then, like, it was said that his military was very appreciated by 13th Dalai Lama, but then the Tibetan adopted the British ones in order to appease the British people. And then there are three spies like Kimura Hisao, and then Nomoto Jinzo, and then Nishikawa. They are the real Japanese spies who stayed in Tibet. Now, important thing is that all these people were greatly appreciated the hospitality given by the Tibetans, and they tried to give a lot of information about Tibet to the Japanese public. That was very helpful, yeah.
Kumala, can you also explain how did their relationship help promote the relation between the two countries over the years?
Yes. So what happened was that when they came back to their own country, the Japanese people and the government, they received them very well as heroes who have discovered or did an expedition in a very difficult country like Tibet. So they have brought a lot of information, especially about the information on the Buddhist texts and the Kanju and Tengyurs. And then they wrote many books about their experience. And these books provided a very living information about how Tibet was a really independent country at that time and how there is no influence of the China itself. So these are the living experience which gave a lot of information about the Tibet. And then these people, they also tried to help later on when we lost the country, Tibet was lost to the country, China. So they tried to help the Tibetan communities in India through various means. So in that way, these travelers to Tibet, they helped provide good information about the Tibet to the Japanese public and the government.
So Japan was one of the first country His Holiness the Dalai Lama visited after coming into exile. How would you define the relation between the two countries after 1959, and what are the impact of the visit?
Yeah, one thing is that His Holiness, his first foreign visit was Japan. So because they had already a good relation with Japan is a Buddhist country, and during 13th Dalai Lama also they had a good relations. And Japanese people are very supportive about the Tibetan cause, and they are very sympathetic. And with the coming of His Holiness in 1967, and later on, His Holiness has visited Japan frequently. So it is said that, including the transit, he visited Japan 40 times. And the impact was that many Japanese felt the real cause of the Tibet was His Holiness promoted this struggle through non-violence. They appreciated this very much. At the same time, they are also very grateful to His Holiness because that in Japan, although it is a Buddhist country and Buddhism is a major religion, but then Buddhism is not properly understood. And they said that Japanese Buddhism is a Soshiki Buddhism. Soshiki Buddhism means Buddhism which is relevant when the people dies. So they feel that Buddhism is not a practical, not a living religion. But with the coming of His Holiness, and with the explanation that His Holiness has given up, especially about the Heart Sutra and all these things. So Japanese people and the monks, they also begin to see the Buddhism through the perspective of the philosophy, science, and religions. So for this, Japanese people, and especially many, are very grateful to His Holiness as well as to the Tibetan Lamas. This way, it greatly helped them understand that the Buddhism is not just for the dead people, but for the living people.
And can you also tell us about the relationship between Japan and Tibet post-Chinese invasion of Tibet? How did Japan treat Tibet soon after the invasion, Chinese invasion?
One thing is that many Japanese felt grateful to Tibet because during the Second World War, when Japan cut off the Burma road to supply the military arms to the China, at that time, the Allied force, the United States, England, and the China requested the Tibetan government to let the arms to pass through Tibet to the China to fight the Japanese. But the Tibetan government at that time expressed their neutrality in the war. And they also said that because Tibet is a sacred land of Buddha, and they cannot let the arms, especially the object of violence, to pass through their sacred land. In that way, so Japanese, they were very grateful that at that time Tibet stayed the neutrality and did not let the Allied force send the arms through it. And now right now, we see that Japanese governments, especially the Japanese parliaments, so they are very supportive about Tibet. as you know, like there are many parliamentarians supporting Tibet issue, but in here, Japanese parliamentary support group for Tibet, we have the largest number. We have more than 100 members inside it. And then there are mini Tibet support group also. We have 12 major support group helping our cause. So these all shows that Tibetan, Japanese people and the governments and people, they are very supportive about the Tibet issue. Yeah.
So Kongla, you have just now mentioned about the current Tibet support situation in Japan for Tibetans. Can you tell us how do the Japanese people look at Tibet issue right now?
So Japan, right now they look the Tibet issue that whatever the Chinese has done is not a proper things. So China's military occupation of the Tibet is illegal, and they are very supportive about our issues. So many Japanese feel that they should be because Japan is a free and a democratic country, and they feel that the human right and the rule of law should abide. Whereas in China, all these are being violated, especially these days. The thing is that China is becoming very aggressive, and they have. It is very clear that the border at India, Nepal, and Bhutan is there is a lot of border intrusion from China, and here the Taiwan is very near to Japan, and Chinese government, they have always been threatening the Taiwan. At the same time, there is the island called Senkaku Islands, which is in the Japanese possessions, but then China claims it's as there, and they are frequently attacking it. And seeing these things, the Japanese public and many people see the real face of the China, and they see that whatever the Chinese government is doing in Tibet is not good. Especially there's some Japanese monks, Japanese religious institutions, they have issued a statement condemning the Chinese interference in the Tibetan religious issues and the violation of the religious freedom in Tibet. In that sense, Japanese people are very supportive on these Tibetan issues. Yeah.
So Kongala, the World Parliamentary Convention on Tibet is going to be held in Tokyo next year. So can you talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah. Regarding this, our chairman of the Tibetan Parliament in Exiles, that is Venerable Khenpo Sonam Tempela, he visited Japan recently, and he was greatly welcomed by the Japanese parliamentarian group at the Parliament building. So we had a discussion about how best we could organize this World Parliamentarian Convention on Tibet 225 next year in Japan. So they are really positive about it, and they felt that with the coming of many parliamentarians around the world in Tokyo, where they and to discuss the Tibet issue is a very important thing, and they ensured that they will give a full support and all other logistics in order to make that convention very successful. And with that, Khenpo Sonam Tempela was also able to thank the parliamentarian that in 2022, both the houses of the Japan parliaments, they issued a statement condemning China about the human rights violation in Tibet. And then, like, there are many other Japanese group also who has issued a similar statements. And then this year in January, the Japanese government have criticized the China at the Geneva UPR forums. So these were all positive development, and our chairman was able to properly thank the Japanese parliament about it. Even the Pungu Shiri Kalam Domala also thanked the parliamentarians. It was a very good opportunity to be grateful and to thank the Japanese parliamentarians for all their helps. Yeah.
So, Kongala, these are my questions for this conversation. Do you have any additional information that you'd like to add?
Yeah, another thing that I would like to add is that those people, the 10 Japanese who visited Tibet earlier, when they came back, so they were very helpful. As I told you, they wrote about books and all those things. which will give a full information about Tibet to the Japanese people. And it also showed that the Tibet was an independent country at that time. And then what happened was a spy like Kimura Hisao. So he was pivotal in arranging education of the Tibetans in Japan. So Dr. Maruki of the Saitama, they also helped. So with their Kimura and Dr. Maruki's help, around 5 boys and 16 16 girls, Tibetan girls, they were educated in different fields, especially in nursing. So that opened a gate for Tibetan education in Japan. And then there is a Naritasan temple, Shinshoji temples, with the Venerable Surumi Shoseki. He helped maybe about the 17 Tibetans to study in Japan, including me also. So in that way, and then we have many Japanese monasteries, individual and groups who are trying to help the Tibetan education in TCV, Sambota, and Tibetan education system also. In that way, Japanese, they have been very helpful. And I take this opportunity to thank the Japanese public and the government for all their helps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kumula, for taking out your time today from your busy schedule and talk to us on the ancient and the current relation between the Tibet and Japan. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
With this, we have come to the end of today's program of In Conversation with Tibettv. Thank you so much for watching.